Hello, everyone. Welcome to our April webinar. Today is everything about hostels. But even if you don't run a hostel, you're also going to find very good lessons for your daily operations in hospitality. So, thank you so much for joining. We are going to get started very soon, and I will start introducing our panelists. But now, go get a coffee, go get a tea. Let's give like one more minute for people to join, to get ready, and then we will start with this session. So go. And in the meantime, please tell us in the chat, where are you listening from? So for all the people that is listening live, listen in the chat, where are you joining from? And we will start very soon. Hello, hi Celia, hi Uyen, hi Anders. We have Sweden, we have Spain, we have Denmark. Oh, very nice. Very nice. Welcome, everyone. Okay, let's get started now. Let's start this session. So I will start introducing our panelists and welcoming all of them. Let's get started. First, we have Jorge Hernandez joining us today, and he is from YellowSquare. Hi, Jorge, how are you?
Hi, everyone. Perfect. Nice to meet you.
Thank you for joining us. Super. And we also have Mikel da Silva from Clink. Mikel, how are you? Thank you for joining us.
Hi guys. Thank you, Joanna. Thank you for the invite and having us like to share a little bit of our story.
Absolutely. Thank you for being here. Excited about everything we're going to talk. And last but not least, we have Mark Evans from Book Boost. Hi, Mark.
Hi, Anna. Great to be here.
Thank you for joining us, Mark. We've already been in another session, so no more introduction for that part. But now let's get started. So thank you everyone for watching. I'm Joanna, marketing manager at Book Boost. And what we do every month, if you've seen our recordings before, or if you've participated in one of our previous webinars, is every month we talk about a different topic that has a lot of relevance for hospitality professionals. And this month is everything about hostels, especially hostels that have managed to scale their operations to different locations. So today we have these two great brands that are doing just that, keeping a great guest experience, a consistent guest experience across all their properties. And they're going to share a little bit about their tips, a little bit of their like learnings, mistakes to avoid, and so on when it comes to scaling a brand, when it comes to managing a team, when it comes to building a guest experience and daily operations. So let's get started. And guys, once again, thank you for joining me. If you have any questions during this session, please use the chat or the Q&A function. The great thing about the people joining live is that we can actually answer your questions. If you're watching the recording, then just leave a comment or send us an email and we will try to get back to you as well. But perfect. Let's get started with everything. And we are going to divide the session within a few of the topics that we want to discuss. One of the first ones is about branding and identity. Because sometimes there's this challenge when you start to open new locations, right? That there's this fear of, what if I lose my brand in the process? How can I make sure that we keep it consistent, that we keep a consistent guest experience? So this question is for both Mikel and Jorge. When opening new locations, what brand or guest experience challenges did you guys run into? And how did you overcome them, of course? Who wants to go first?
I can start if you okay. So I have to go a bit backwards because in the end I have to explain a bit of how the concept behind YellowSquare, which is in a few words to create what we call here in Italy a piazza or a square where people from different backgrounds can actually meet and have this cultural exchange. And basically in the same discourse create like a link between the travelers and the local audience. So it's a window for the travelers to the local life, and a window for the local life, for the locals to the world, basically. So of course, when you put this concept in different scenarios in different locations, the challenge comes into adapting each location to the local culture, to the local way of life, but also to the type of guest, because every location has different guests from different parts of the world. So the mix is different, of course, and we don't want to be perceived as a chain in the end. We're a brand where every location is different. There's not just there's not a YellowSquare, but there's YellowSquare Rome, there's YellowSquare Milan, there's YellowSquare Florence, and each one of them is a different experience. And we want the guests to be surprised in the end. We don't want the guests to know exactly what to expect, but it's like, okay, this is happening in Rome, but let's go to Milan. It's going to be a different experience. It's a different concept in the end. So that adaptation to the local culture is, when opening locations, is really difficult. Some things work in one location, other things don't. It's fine, but we have a great team that handles this in each city, and I think that's at least in my opinion, the forte from us in that regard.
Absolutely. Super interesting what you mentioned about how it's not just one thing, but it's actually like YellowSquare Rome, YellowSquare, like in every location. Perfect. Mikel, what can you tell us about this?
It's very interesting because we have like kind of like the same problematics as like YellowSquare on this, and especially that Clink Hostels, we are like spread out across like 3 different cities, but like 3 different countries as well, with different cultures and type of guests as well that will come. And because we are located in Amsterdam, London, and in Dublin. But also something that we have quite unique, like for our brand as well, is we love transforming historical buildings. So to give you an example, Clink 78, that is based in London, was like a former Victorian courthouse, with like the small cells in, still that were converted into rooms. Our property, the main property that we have, like Clink Nord in Amsterdam, was like a shell head office and lab, it will be easier. And like we have also like a one in Amsterdam, Clink Coco, that was like a former brothel. So all have like a different like style, but there's also like different layouts and different sizes as well. That is like kind of like a challenge for us, because we know that like people that will come to Clink Nord, for instance, where we have like 835 beds, we look for complete different experiences like Clink Coco. This is like our smaller property with 43 beds. So it's where like the challenge like stands out. For us, like to keep like a brand consistency, it's always kind of like difficult to find like the balance. And we saw it more importantly like when we opened in Dublin, that for the first time in our history, we had a new building, but it was like kind of like a blank canvas. It was like a brand new building with no style compared like to other buildings. So we had like to start like from scratch, like, okay, how to balance between bringing like kind of like a structure, brand, color palette, like facilities that we used to have like in other locations at Clink, but as well like to bring its own identity, like its own Clink Dublin identity as well. It's where like the challenge stands out, and it was for us like it was like a good learning bit, because we tried kind of like to absorb the community stuff, as like Jorge said as well, and try to absorb as well like what's like the particularity of like the local culture. And for us, like we had lots of pressure for the one in Dublin, because we are like an Irish family-owned business, so there was lots of excitement, but as well like we didn't want like to be too kind of the word that we will use like in Ireland, like paddy whackery, like that it would be like like put like shamrocks everywhere, like like to be like in those kind of cliches, but like to bring something unique, but keep like the Clink spirit, that when someone starts like enter like in at the reception area, they will instantly recognize that like that's a Clink hostel, but that with like that different touch, because we're in Dublin and not London or Amsterdam. And for this, it was lots of work with our marketing team. We have like an in-house and graphic designer as well. So it was lots of like reflection and A/B testing as well to make it work.
That's super interesting what you say, because it makes sense. So although there are different locations, then what you guys are trying to find is like some consistent way of showing the people that when you enter there, okay, this is a Clink location, right? And then mixing, but of course it's a challenge because you're mixing this whole thing, especially of the historical buildings and so on. So then it's like another element to consider in the mix. But I love that of like having one thing that characterizes the brand, that you can say like, okay, this is this brand, this is YellowSquare, this is Clink. Very nice. Let's continue here then. Still talking a little bit about brand experience and keeping the brand authentic. This is for Mikel. So Mikel, how do you keep your brand experience authentic while adapting to each local culture and growing across locations? So in this case, you mentioned that you are not just in different cities, but actually in different countries as well. So did you notice any big difference between like the countries in this case that would affect the experience or the culture that you guys built around your brand?
Yeah, totally. Even we try like something that it's not like super easy, but like we don't. I think like we try like not like to copy and paste events, activities, or what we do kind of like across all destinations. So like it's a kind of like a collaborative work between our marketing team and the local team that brings ideas like to come up like with things that they are unique on their own location. So from day one, when we start operating like in a city, we try like to partner with as much local communities, artists, or organizations as possible that they are in line with our values, our aspirations, but as well to in line with our customers as well, values. And from there, like we try like to have like those like specificities. For instance, like in Dublin, we started like first like to work a lot like with local breweries. When we opened, we have a bar and so on. Like instead of like kind of like working with like the big brands to serve like beer, some of them like quite well known like in Ireland. We started like first like to get in contact with all local breweries like in Dublin, and there are loads of them, and kind of like to make ourselves known, but as well like to kind of like embed Clink into the community as well, like to help them also like to increase like their brand awareness, because we have like customers coming from a lot like from different European countries, but we have also like a big base from North America as well. So when they will come and have like a local beer, then they will live and see if they like it, like most likely like they will try like to find it in the US or Canada. So it's like what we try like to do as much as possible. Yeah, like to, because like we are not like kind of like just like a place like to sleep. It's like based on our values and mission is like we try like kind of like to aim to be sort of like a stage for local creative scene, like to so we are like in the community, like we're among one of them. It's like it's very important like not to just be there like for transactional business, and like we want like to be part of this and like improve as well the life in that street or that neighborhood also. So that's what's like drives us a lot, but it's a lot of cooperation between our central marketing team and the events and like the local teams that they feed us like with lots of ideas, suggestions, and so on. It's like them like driving it, and it's like our local colleagues that will bring the energy as well of the execution of it. So
absolutely, and such a nice example of collaboration, and also a lot of these local experiences. They're becoming more and more important, and we know that hostels are a lot about this interaction, right? And like the events that are happening around, and it's like a whole vibe. So super interesting how you guys are partnering with these breweries, or at least trying to involve the local community on that. Perfect. And now let's talk a little bit about the team. So in this part of living the brand, right? How do you guys, Jorge, how do you think in YellowSquare you guys are motivating the team to live the brand every day? Because while having different locations, right, the challenge grows because you're talking about different people, different places, and so on. So what has worked for you guys?
Yeah, in general, I think it first starts with the hiring process, because the people that become our staff members, they say, let's say that they fit the mold of YellowSquare, of our values. They are in the end our ideal guests also. Some of them even were guests before joining us, so they started as a guest and then they ended up working in YellowSquare. They're travelers, they're nomads, they're very social people with a high sense of community. Also, they share the values with the company and let's say the YellowSquare mindset. So, I mean, just as Mikkel was saying, for us, the values is also really important. I think we're also very aligned. And let's say that we encourage them to participate also in the activities. We offer, of course, discounts at the bar. The activities are not just for the guests, but also for the people for our staff members. And in the end, they are the ones promoting the activities. They're also the ones there interacting with the guests. They become part of the community, as we are calling it. And we also have, for example, certain internal processes or ideas. For example, we have the Yellow Pass, which is where we can visit other hostels for free. Everything is on the company. So we just go there, we stay for 3 or 4 nights, we see what other places are, because again, everyone is different. Every location is different. Also have, for example, the Yellow Exchange, which is you basically go actually to work to another one of the hostels in the company for 1 or 2 weeks, or depending, for example, the demand. Like that's also something that, so they are not just, yeah, they're not only bound to the place they work in, to their locality, but they can also see how it works in different places. Also, of course, listening to them, having the activities that they propose. We have a blog, an internal newsletter where they can actually go and write their articles. We actually promote writing our blog, and they get an incentive for it. And you know, it's all about the personalizing the place also, because they are part of this place. It's a community in the end, and they are part of this community. So it's about, of course, with rules and limits, but it's about also making this place their own, and having them like see themselves reflected in the place they're here working in for long periods of time. So it's just natural.
Absolutely. And as you say, they are also part of your target. It's not that in hospitality, we can't really care only about our guests if we're not taking care of our internal public, right? Our internal audience. So really nice how you guys have this way of it's motivating people to just join. Like it's a joint effort. Super nice. Mikkel, in your case, what can you tell us a little bit about motivating the team to lead the brand?
Yeah, so it's quite funny because there are lots of similarities on what we do with like YellowSquare, and just like what Jorge said, as like the Yellow Pass, we have the same incentive. We call it like backpacker experience, but like even like the team member work exchange as well. It's something that we encourage like a lot, and it's very powerful stuff like to do, but because like it's not just like it's an experience and like a development opportunity to go like in different locations, to discover as well like a different culture, but also it's kind of like brings like the team together. Like it's because like sometimes we have the feeling like you work kind of like in silo, and you have like the team in Amsterdam, team in Dublin, and you know like, but like the same at the end of the day, we are all like Clinkies. You know, we are all working for the same company. We are all at the same board. and we are all passionate and driven by the same stuff. So this helps as well, like kind of like to be a little bit more open-minded and kind of like don't forget that you have like colleagues like elsewhere, and it helps like also like strengthening like our brand values also, because and it brings like experience as well, different knowledge. And what we saw as well, it helps like we had some colleagues that started working with us like in one location. They loved, let's say like in Amsterdam, and a few years after, you know, we have like an open position, and they say like, look, I want like to move and work with you like in Amsterdam. So that's kind of like a success story as well for us. But like just on what probably things that we do that's not like wasn't like mentioned by Jorge in their case is when every new team member like starts with us, like they receive like a Clink culture book that's like kind of like summarized like in extensive way our stories from like the journey from our like founders and Chile, you know, how like Clink started to kind of like have like highlighting as well like our core values, like missions, and what make Clink like unique in this sense. And we also hosted quite a lot like in the past kind of like sessions with different departments with like the new team member, which quite often it was like the guest experience director with like the HR person, and the other departments as well could be like in that room, and kind of like have a chance like to connect face to face with like between like old Clinkies and new ones, break the ice across like departments, talk a little bit about ourselves, and start building like kind of a shared like sense of purpose. Because that's what like drives like if you work for a company, most of the time you want like to feel like it's good what you're doing, like there is a sense, you know. And in hospitality, it's very important to make everyone feel, especially our colleagues on site, that they have like a purpose, you know, like that's what they do. There is a sense. So that helps a lot actually. And those sessions, like in the culture book, are part of everything that Jorge said already, and we actually do as well.
That's amazing. Honestly, like if we would have started to make a list like on the initiatives that you guys are mentioning, we will already be like for like number 10, I think. And it's so interesting how we can definitely see that properties, they work in a different way. So a lot of things that you guys work in one country might not work in the other, but also in a hotel group, right? Like maybe more traditional, it wouldn't be working the same initiatives that you guys are pushing in your hostel brands. So it's really interesting to understand how every brand has their own essence. Now that we're done a little bit with the part of brand, let's jump into guest experience and how are those interactions with guests happening? How is the whole guest journey working at your hostels? So let's talk a little bit about those touch points that are working or the ones that are not really working. And I'm gonna turn to Mark for this. So Mark, you are always talking to everyone, not just hostels, but also hotels. But let's talk about your conversations with other hostels in European regions. And then let's think about, from what you've seen, what do you think are the most overlooked touch points, that the ones that matter the most for guest engagement, but that are normally overlooked by hostels?
Thank you. It's really great to hear about all these different initiatives, right? And there's clearly, you've got experienced hosteliers, is that what we call them? You know, where you've got growing, scaling brands, and I think the common denominator is such a focus on guest experience, or experience in general, staff experience, guest experience. And what I've just been thinking the whole time is, you know, these initiatives that you come up with are only as good as how you're able to communicate them across to your guests. Right, you can come up with these great ideas, and you can come up with these passes or a different way to engage with the cities that you're in. But if you're not able to communicate that across to the guests, then you're leaving so much out there, right? You're not delivering on these plans that you've got. the obvious ones, how do we email it across, and booking confirmations and pre-arrival emails. I think those are all quite consistent across hospitality. I think some touch points that aren't being utilized as much as they should be are SMS, WhatsApp, definitely. I'm not checking my inbox when I'm on holiday or when I'm traveling in a new city as regularly as I am easily opening up a WhatsApp and getting that bit of communication, being told about what's happening this evening or what's going on in the city this weekend. So those are definitely options. I think the other thing when it comes to hostels is that you've got a really engaged audience when it comes to digital. They're very happy to drive themselves. So giving them an opportunity to use something like a guest app or more content to work with, to be able to book themselves, to be able to create their own itineraries or understand what's available, not just a quick message, but driving content to them and allowing them to then self-drive their experience. I'd imagine, and I'd look forward to hearing your views, Mikel and Jorge, I'd imagine that that's really a strong demand from your target market.
Perfect. Thank you, Mark, for sharing. And I agree that in many cases, a lot of the audiences are definitely a little bit more drawn to the digital part, I would say. And I mean, we know a bunch of, for example, Gen Zs, they don't want to call, right? They don't want to call anywhere. They prefer to do everything on the phone and so on. So definitely we should be able to provide those kind of touch points. So now let's hear from you guys. I would like to hear a little bit more about the things that you try and that didn't work in your guest journey. Like, is there anything that you try to do and then you realize like, okay, these now moving forward, good test, but bye-bye. Who wants to go first?
I can go first. I will pick like an example that Mark like mentioned as well. That is a very tricky one. Is like the pre-arrival check-in form. That like I think all hostels or hotels in the world like they are really like pushing for this because it presents lots of like benefits for us as like professionals, and we believe like it presents as well like some benefits as well for the guests because like it will like the check-in process will be faster. They won't spend time like on admin stuff at the front desk, and we believe like it will help them like kind of like to enjoy like the city faster. But what we saw and noticed, like, so it wasn't like a complete failure. It's something that we're started looking into this and working in progress. It's like what we learn is like it's all about like timing and messaging, especially with our demographic, like Gen Zs and millennials, that they are like more tech savvy or they're a little bit less like reluctant to do stuff like online. But like the thing is like they have like to clearly understand what's for them, like what's like the benefits for me, and to be like kind of like to have a sense of personalization. And that's something that we learned, and kind of like it was a mistake from our side, and we're like trying like to correct it. And for this, like we actually like using your tool, like Boost guys, like we will help us like kind of like to run like more A/B testing, like in terms of like message delivery time, channels, like the copy format as well. But the audiences, OTAs versus direct bookers, and kind of like fragmented as well, because they are all very different as well on how like they will kind of like react or engage like with your content. So, and this was like a mistake that we learned. It was like kind of like to have like standardized message, like kind of hoping, okay, people will do it by themselves because like it makes sense. And no, like the engagement was like quite low. So we are like working on this and trying to use like Boost and all like the features and functionalities that you have and to help us and kind of like run more A/B tests to learn faster and also gather like more real data as well for future like the decision making as well, because at the moment we had loads of like gut feelings and on how like we were implementing our campaigns or like the type of content, and we say like it didn't work as great as expected.
Absolutely. And I think it's great when you try things. It's like, okay, let's see if this works. But obviously you make the decisions on what will stay and what will go based on data. So that's great because then you're measuring the results. And I'm really happy that Bookbus is helping you with that and to try different things. Perfect. Jorge, what about you guys? Anything that you tried and you said like, okay, no, not working, let's switch the approach?
I mean, to be honest, everything that Mark and Mikkel said sounds extremely familiar. It's all about, delivering the right message at the right time to the right audience. It's, for example, we have a lot of communications that are inside of the hotels, a lot of banners and a lot of places where guests can go and take a little bit of information. What happens sometimes, that information is lost because the guests don't even look at those places. So it's like, okay, maybe we should try something different. They don't know about the events, for example. So one thing that we did was that we started sending an email before the arrival using BookBoost with the events for their stay time. For the next week, I think. So that way the guests can already see in the email, oh, this is going to happen at the hostel before I arrive. So I can already say, oh, maybe I'm interested in this, maybe I'm interested in that. And to have this more focused, clear, targeted communication that can really get across the message, and also not just from us to the guest, but also from us to our staff members, that they have the clear message, because sometimes when they don't get the message in a clear way, when they don't understand really what they have to be proposing, what they have to be telling to the guests, the message gets lost and it arrives in the wrong way, or it doesn't arrive. So you have basically really clear communication, both to directly with the guest and to the staff. Mm-hmm. And have these channels to use all the channels available to have the clear communication. So, yeah.
Absolutely. That's a great example. And yeah, I agree that a lot of the similarities that we are finding out, but it's only because you guys have great brands. So that's really good. Great minds think alike. Okay, let's continue then. So that's a little bit about guest journeys and the things that you have tried, didn't work, and how you try to find the things that do work. And then what you mentioned about personalization and how it's highly important. It doesn't matter the type of brand that you are running. But now let's talk a little bit about tech and tools, because it's also very different the way that we choose tech for a giant corporation than for an independent hotel, than for a multi-property hostel, and so on. So let's talk a little bit about that. How do you guys decide what's actually worth investing for your hostel, like for the brand? And maybe let's just mention like what are the aspects that are the most important for you? Maybe, Jorge, you can tell us.
Sure. I think Mikkel will have the exact same issues. That is that most tools are actually adapted to hotels, not for hostels. That's where most of the market is. That's where how most of the tools are working. So of course, trying to adapt those tools to the hostel mindset becomes extremely difficult, and we have to find the right partners for doing this. And we're also very tech savvy. We understand that everything at some point can be made better by adding tech to it. I'm actually a data scientist here in YellowSquare, so we are really focused on this part, knowing that the tool we use has an API, that we can extract data from it, that it has interconnectivity with other systems. This is key to us because nothing works in a vacuum. Everything is interconnected with everything. So if we can go and see these connections, then everything becomes way easier for us. And also working with partners that have also somewhat the same values as us and have really strong relationships with them. Let's say that working with big companies might not be the best course for us. We would like to work with companies that are creating different products, or that are still like with very fast development, that are not so set on things, because then we can have a say. Then we can have a relationship with them and say, hey, look, maybe you would like to try this. Maybe this would be a good solution for you, and become like users, testers. I mean, here with BookBoost, we have tested a bunch of things also with you, and yeah, like basically we can have a bit of a say in the direction, the development that in the end works for us. So yeah.
Perfect, and really good that you pointed out those differences, and I think it absolutely works a little bit like that. And Mark, what would you, in this still in the aspect of tech, then what would you recommend for hostels trying to implement more tech into their tech stack? Like, what would be the mistakes they should avoid, or maybe the first few steps that they can take?
Sure. I think I think a common thread, again, listening to the two of them, is the willingness to try, the willingness, being prepared to take a little bit of a, let's say, risk, but take a chance. Let's try this. Let's see if it works, and let's adapt. I think that's such a lesson that can be taken. I think there's a kind of a little bit too tentative when it comes to trying out different tech and making it work. So to answer the question, I'd say get started, and it's about getting started, trying something, and then adjusting and iterating as you go. And the longer you wait, potentially the longer or the greater chance of falling a little bit further behind. I think others who might also be listening say, okay, well, they've got many beds, they've got multiple properties, it's easier for them to say these types of things. I think you get there by taking that approach. You get there by saying, we're going to try, we're going to adapt, we're going to iterate. And I think the other clear thing that's come through is this focus on guest experience. Typically, when I see properties looking to buy tech, it's a combination of trying to drive down costs, trying to create operational efficiencies, and trying to improve the guest experience. But often the guest experience part of that puzzle is the one that gets left or has the lowest impact on the decision. And I'd suggest focusing more on that, focusing more on the outcome to the guest experience, because I think what we've heard today is people that have focused on that guest experience, they're the ones getting the return customers. They're the ones that are actually scaling and growing. So it's not obviously cost conscious, and driving down costs is important, and obviously operational efficiencies is really important. But giving an equal weighting to guest experience, I think, is something we're learning here in this webinar.
Absolutely, 100% agree. And on that topic, on guest experience and personalization, I want to make one final question for both Jorge and Mikel. So how do you find out if personalization is contributing, is improving your guest experience? How has been the case for you, and is it working or not? What can you tell us about it?
If I may, just as well, like to jump on what was just said by Jorge and Mark, like I 100% like agreed. For our side, like even if we are like, we seem like we're going to be quite big, we have like a small budget allocated, like in terms of like IT, new tech, like to look like for in the market, and we don't have like a proper IT team as well, like in-house. Like, so from our side, like where we saw like that works like quite well is like, as Mark said, like not to be afraid of, like to try, but like to be kind of like to look at like a partnership like in the long term, to see like how, if I choose like that partner, like does it make like the company future proof or not in 3, 4, 5 years time, because there are like great products, like great technologies like in the market, but like as Jorge said, like they are always like hotel focus, they can be like a little bit pricey, And sometimes for hostels, it can overcomplicate as well, like your tech stack. They are like stuff that you won't use, that you're there, like you're paying for this, but they're like, it's not useful. So thanks, but no thanks. So like, it's like to look like for a partner, like as we did like in our journey with you, with Boost, but like we did the same with other partners, like to look like, okay, make our company future-proof, centralize all our tech stack as well, because it brings loads of like benefits in terms of like brand recognition, brand consistency as well. If you have like messages triggered like by different points, just like they get lost because like the layout, the format, everything's like completely different. They're like, okay, who's contacting me here? But as well in terms of data, which is like Jorge's specialty, that like we struggle like for a while having like a too complex tech stack, and it was like a legacy from a 20 years-ish old like company, that like to reconcile our data into a central point and kind of like, okay, how can we treat and use that data? And it was like extremely difficult. So we're like in the process kind of like to shrinking it and have like only 1-2 big partners that will kind of like run like the entire like tech stack like for the company. That will be my advice, like keep it like be proactive, not be afraid, but as well like keep it simple and look at what are your needs, and don't look like don't over complicate it. But like for us, like in your question, Joanna, like when I would just like, we look at like the entire get journey, but like if we look at just like the pre-arrival stage, we look at like key indicators from the messages that we send, like how like people are interacting, engaging with it, and do they open it, do they click it, and like we go like in granular view. But as well, like we look at other metrics as like we are like more and more automating stuff and communications using AI. But for us, like it looks like we have like to look at as well like the CSAT from those guests, like they are contacting us like before arrival. How like are they satisfied or not? Did you get like the right reply? Try to as well like get like to improve the experience, but as well like to push for the awareness around like our events, activities, and kind of like use those automation as well, like to help us as well, to push for it. And after it will be like the for a later stage like of the journey, like the like the NPS score and so on. But like if I have like to pick one part of like the journey is like what we look for.
Perfect. Thank you so much for sharing and for the advice as well on the tech stack. And regarding personalization, Jorge, do you have anything to add regarding how is it working out for you guys? Do you see the benefits or not?
Yeah, I mean, actually, going back to what a bit to what Mikkel said, is it's also important to know what's not to include, I think. And this is, I think, the first difference that I see between us. For example, we have chosen not to do AI bots or personal in that case, because we don't want the guests to have barriers to reach us. Like we actually, when they call us, I mean, it's our customer experience team that picks up the phone, and some guests are even like, oh, I'm actually talking to a human, incredible. So it's also part of it. That's what I'm saying right now, but maybe when as we scale, we will maybe need to use this technology. So of course we have to adapt. But in the end, it's all about frustration, reducing frustration both from the guests and from our staff members. Because if these things are basically taking apart from the equation, basically we can focus on what's really important, which is the guest experience, to deliver a good experience for the guest in general. So I think this is my advice in general, to always focus both on the staff and for the guest.
Absolutely. Perfect. Thank you so much. With that question, we've come to the end of our session. We've talked a lot about brand, scaling, keeping consistency, taking care of the guest journey, and how to choose tech when you are running a hostel. So I hope everyone who is live or watching the recording have gotten great tips for their daily operations. Thank you guys for joining us. Both have amazing brands, and we're so happy to be partners with you in delivering these amazing guest journeys and empowering you to use your guest data to personalize the whole experience. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for everyone watching, and we see you next time, next month, in our upcoming new webinar.